is going on, my fellow movie nerds and geeks alike? Happy summer, y'all, and as you know, this June 13th, coming up on Friday, it is this year's only Friday the 13th, so I wanted to make another Friday the 13th video for all you guys today. Today's video is a bit more of just me talking, reminiscing about my history growing up with the Friday the 13th films, and how essentially Jason and the Friday the 13th movies were essentially my gateway into horror movies and just an essential part of my upbringing and bringing me to closer with friends, family, and hell, my wife. Now I'm gonna use some AI generated images here.
Bruh.
I don't condone the use of AI as like a art form. I just want to use it here because it better tells my story in instances where maybe I don't have a photo to share these moments. I don't fuck with AI, but in this instance, it's helpful for me to help tell this story. Hope you don't mind. There are going to be some AI images here. Now, my story with Friday the 13th kind of starts about how maybe most of yours started. I was way too young. I was maybe 3, 4. We're talking late 80s here. And my mom and dad had gotten divorced when I was super young. So one weekend I was spending it at my father's house. And in his cabinet, they had a bunch of VHS tapes. And within that cabinet, I found a smorgasbord of the VHS copies of the Friday the 13th films. I was psyched. I was enamored with the artwork. I probably shouldn't have been watching that young, but I did anyway. And I believe the very first Friday the 13th film I watched, I was about 3 or 4 years old, was Friday the 13th Part 3. From there on out, I was obsessed. I couldn't share my story with anyone because, of course, I'm 3, 4 years old in preschool being like, do you guys know who Jason Voorhees is? And kids were like, no, what? But anyway, I'd come home from a weekend at my dad's and my family would be like, you're watching horror movies? What? They didn't understand. And because I was so obsessed with watching these Friday the 13th films, my father, God rest his soul, he was a sports guy, gambling, all that stuff. He didn't know how to really relate to a young kid like me. I eventually got into like skateboarding and stayed into like horror films, but he would take me to these video rental stores and be like, oh, you like horror movies, so let's rent some horror movies. And like I said earlier, Friday the 13th was a huge gateway for me. This led my father to renting me Phantasm, which, God, I was like maybe 5 years old, and Phantasm still to this day is probably my favorite horror movie of all time. So thank you, Dad, God rest your soul. Even though you couldn't relate to me, you definitely like introduced me to things that would become like favorites of mine. And now at this time, Friday the 13th, the Paramount years had already kind of run their course. So like I had no opportunity to see any of these films in the movie theater or anything. But at this time, Jason Goes to Hell was gaining steam and it was coming out. And I remember a neighbor of mine, this girl, I think her name was Melanie, told me, Jason Goes to Hell sucks. It's nothing like the other Friday the 13ths. And me being a young kid, I'm like, no way, it's probably awesome. Lo and behold, it was very different from the other films, but I loved everything as a kid. Who didn't? But as time grew on, my grandmother would take me shopping. We went to Odd Job one time. We're perusing the movie section, and there were these Friday the 13th tapes. Only 2, but she bought them for me. And I still have the exact ones to this day. The original Friday the 13th, which I had not even seen at that point. I only saw various sequels. And Jason Goes to Hell. I got my first opportunity to watch this on VHS, and to my grandmother's chagrin, when the sex scene in the tent came on, she's hollering from the kitchen, what are you watching? I'll never forget that, but yeah, still own these copies to this day. And from there, my uncle on my mom's side, my mom's brother, caught wind of my love for Friday the 13th. He was like an older brother to me, so to me, he was the coolest dude on earth, being into like metal music and just scary movies and stuff, so his word was gospel. And he introduced me to Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives, which was his favorite. Obviously, him being a metalhead and that one having a huge heavy metal influence with Tom McLaughlin and all that stuff. So to this day, him introducing me to that film, that one is still one of my favorite films. And just to like even further just like how cool I thought this dude was, he loved AC/DC. He even had a vanity license plate on his car at the time that said, "You shook me."
Bruh.
Absolutely insane. Still one of my favorite people in my life to this day. He may not be a rocker anymore and like a father and all that, but he's still cool as hell and will always be an older brother to me. And from there, like, you know, going back and forth to my mom, from my mom's to my dad's on certain weekends. His sister, my Aunt Arlene, would take me to the mall and buy me, like, Jason Goes to Hell trading cards. They were all convinced because I was so into Friday the 13th that I was going to end up becoming a serial killer. Bruh. Don't worry, guys, I didn't. I'm here making silly YouTube videos and working full-time. Everything turned out okay. And from there, I would meet friends in middle school, like my buddy Mike and I. We would have sleepovers together, watch all the Friday the 13th movies, and like see who could read a Goosebump book the fastest. And even the Friday the 13th love, like, it was shared between me and my best friends. We would obviously read the Goosebump books, and we would share other movies together. So, like, the gateway horror continues again. We'd go on to meet my buddy Joe, who you know as Joe from Movie Dumpster. He would introduce us to a slew of movies we never even knew existed, like the Faces of Death movies, Cannibal Holocaust. And all along this time, you know, I'm obviously watching all the Halloween movies, the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, all like the usual suspects. But because of Jason, I'm finally being like, whoa, there's a whole world out here to visit. And with Joe introducing us to like Cannibal Holocaust, we went down the rabbit hole of like Italian films, all thanks to Friday the 13th bringing us together and showing us this world that I never knew existed as a young kid. And I mean, from there, it felt like every weekend we were either going to see Valentine or Jeepers Creepers or Darkness Falls. You know, every weekend my mom would be upset, like, what'd you do with your allowance? It's like, I'd be there, spend all my money at Suncoast Video buying all the Friday the 13th movies on VHS and a slew of other horror movie stuff. We'd be buying, like, the movie Maniacs action figures. I'd be buying, like, Friday the 13th snow globes, Friday the 13th statues. I mean, you name it. I was buying everything Friday the 13th. And still to this day, I mean, only a month ago I did a video of me talking about how I just bought a NECA Pamela Voorhees toy. And you know, as like VHS kind of came to pass, like me and all my friends started buying them all up on DVD. I bought all of them on like their regular DVD, all the way through like the crazy cover era and the deluxe DVD era. And then finally came the time where I was old enough to go see some of these movies in a movie theater. Me and all my friends like had caught wind of, you know, maybe there's going to be a Freddy vs. Jason, there's going to be a Jason X, Jason in Space, and Jason X got shelved for a little while. So my uncle, being the cool-ass dude he was, he had a connection to a guy who had a bootleg of Jason X. Now it looked just like this, just a little more homemade, and it was a year before the movie had even come out, so we weren't sure this was real. When we popped it in, we were laughing. We were like, there's no way this is real. This looks like a Sci-Fi Channel, like, fan film. A year later, when my mom, you know, we're still 16, bought us tickets and we all went in there and watched Jason X, it was that film. But thanks to my uncle, we got a private viewing of this thing a year before it even came out. I mean, around this time as well, like, because my uncle was still like, I can't believe you still love this stuff. Like, we're getting into the era now where I'm 18. I'm getting Jason Voorhees tattoos. And at the tail end of the 80s, my mom had made him this, like, airbrushed, like, tank top shirt on the boardwalk when Jason Takes Manhattan was coming out. It's got, like, the Jason mask and the skyline, and it says New York has a new problem on the back. It was amazing, and I always thought it was great. Because I still loved it, he finally gave it to me, and I still have it to this day. And also around this time, Freddy vs. Jason was coming out. My uncle was just like, we're going to see it first day. And I upset him a little bit when I went to go see it at the midnight showing. And when the New Line thing first popped up and you hear the Nightmare on Elm Street bleeding into the ch-ch-ch. Oh my God, I was in love from day one. He was mad at me, but we still went the next day. And I saw it again the next day as well. I saw it 3 times opening weekend. That movie I've since fallen out of favor with a little bit, but I'm still so happy they finally got it made after all those years. From there, I went to college, you know, I was there in all my film classes getting asked, like, oh, what's your favorite guilty pleasure film? And I said Friday the 13th movies, and everyone kind of laughed at me. But from there, like, you know, like, I got introduced to even more, like, weird, trippy horror films, like Eraserhead, The World of David Lynch. And Friday the 13th is what drew me into why I love filmmaking today, you know, and why I'm still doing YouTube videos and stuff like that. And sharing with all my roommates. Every weekend I'd go home and bring some more movies from my collection. We would have Friday the 13th marathons. My roommates would then bring movies from their childhood to introduce to me. So Friday the 13th was bringing all this crap together. More movies for my eyeballs. I saw all the Death Wish movies for the first time thanks to that. I saw all the Silent Night, Deadly Night movies because of that. It was just Friday the 13th eventually bringing all these movies into my world. It was great. And, you know, from there, we got the world of Blu-ray. So I'm buying all the movies on Blu-ray now in this tin set. I remember my mom asking, because she still to this day was like, don't you already have all these movies? I'm like, yeah, Mom, but they're high definition now. But bless her heart, because this went out of print super quick. But I got this for my birthday and Christmas one year while I was in college. And then, of course, in college, the remake boom was going on. So went to the midnight screening of the remake, which my uncle loved at the time. I was kind of indifferent about it, but I've come around to it. And I think out of all of the remakes, I think the Friday the 13th one is one of the better ones. I think I already told the story about when I sat in on a Q&A with Derek Mears and the White Ranger story in a past video, so you could go back and watch that if you want. And from there, I graduated college, and ironically enough, my graduation cake was a Camp Crystal Lake Jason mask cake for graduating college. So, like, my love for this just, like, has never, ever wavered. And then a couple years later, I would meet who would become my wife, Victoria. And I remember we were seeing each other for about a month, and she was just, like, kind of, like, hinting at me, like, hey, why aren't we boyfriend and girlfriend yet? But I didn't want to tell her that I was waiting for Friday the 13th to ask her to be my girlfriend. Not only because of how much it means to me, but also because it's a little easier for me to remember. So that night at midnight, I was going into the city to the old Sunshine Theater to watch the original Friday the 13th on the big screen. And at midnight, I had asked her, like, hey, you want to be my girlfriend? And I, you know, finally told her the spiel, like, hey, sorry for making you wait or anything. Like, I just wanted you to be my girlfriend on Friday the 13th because I thought it was kind of quirky. And she loved it. When I first met her, she loved horror movies as well, but she was more of a Freddy girl. Nowadays, she's converted. She's more of a Jason fan, and she'll even admit it. Even me and her together, she'd introduce me to a different horror movie. I'd show her all the Friday the 13th movies, and we'd share movies together. That's why we are so compatible, is like, our tastes differ, but at the same time, they're kind of compatible, and we just share stuff together. That's love, baby. And then later on, we'd even get married on Halloween. We love this shit. And then as time went on, of course, you know, like, I'm meeting all the stars from these films at various conventions. I've met, like, so many people who have played Jason, even Betsy Palmer. Some of the bit characters, I mean, I buy all the books, I get all, like, the quirky little signs, and, of course, in 2020, we got the huge box set from Scream Factory that I, of course, rebought all the films on Blu-ray again, and now, even to this day, I'm rebuying them single-handedly on 4K, one by one. And I'm still buying the toys. Every now and then, I'll still walk into a store. I don't buy everything, but Friday the 13th is the only franchise where I'll, like, look at something and be like, I think I want to buy this just because it's Jason. Like, hell, there's been times I've bought Jason Voorhees mints at Spirit Halloween. Like, what the fuck do I need that for? I get, like, record holder things. I get record slip mats. I get, like, the shit on vinyl. It's just never ending. And not that I'm complaining. I love it to death. If you want to see, like, all, like, the crazy crap I've collected all these years with Friday the 13th, I'll, like, link the video to my Friday the 13th collection that I did a couple years back down below. There's a lot. It has brought me so much joy watching these films, and like I said, and like I've described in all these instances, it has brought me friendships. It has brought me together with my wife, met so many friends at the conventions, talking to all the stars. It's just been wonderful. It's introduced me to a world of film I never knew even existed. All thanks to Jason and me opening that cabinet as a kid. I'm so happy it happened, and I'm so happy my love for it has never wavered. Like, still to this day, every Friday the 13th, hell, not even Friday the 13th, I'll throw one of those films on and can quote it front to back, but I still love watching it every single time. I've even gone to Blairstown, New Jersey a bunch of times and visited some of the set locations that they were filming on, like the diner and like that main street there. I mean, even growing older, like my mom, like walking into my room and seeing all like the horror movie stuff on the walls, she was so confused. And like my grandma, even same deal. Everyone was just like, why are you into all this stuff? But like, you know, because I was a good kid, I was doing well in school, it didn't bother them, and they've grown to appreciate it. And like every now and then I'll like take funny photos with them holding like a machete or like my old horror movies with them, just because they laugh about it. But alright guys, I hope you liked my little story time video. I know it's like kind of out of character for this channel, but I felt necessary to just kind of talk about my love for this franchise, seeing as how Friday the 13th is this Friday. And if you do still want to watch more Friday the 13th videos from us, I'll link all the ones we've done before. They're a lot of fun. I just did one last week on all the best kills. That's a really fun one that I think you all will enjoy if you want to check that out. I hope you guys have a wonderful Friday the 13th and pick a great one to watch, or hell, marathon through all of them. Don't worry, we'll take a little breather from Friday the 13th after this one. Thank you so much for watching our silly little videos, and always remember, the horrors persist, but so do we. Adios guys, happy Friday the 13th, and I'll see you at the next video.
Jason was my son, and today is his birthday.